Hello, I'm Professor Mary Horgan, President of the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. The Royal College of Physicians of Ireland is the country's largest and oldest postgraduate training college. RCPI was founded in 1654 and since that time has trained and educated doctors in Ireland and globally. Some of my predecessors are well-known names in medicine, and they include Robert Graves of Graves' disease fame, Cheyne and Stoke of Cheyne-Stoke breathing fame, and Dominic Corrigan of Corrigan pulse fame. Two of our biggest faculties are in internal medicine and paediatrics. We train our doctors to be the best they can possibly be and provide quality care to the patients that they serve. By joining the internal medicine residency program within the college, you will be part of our community. The college has global reach. It's there to support you and to provide you with the best possible training. Ireland is well known for its bedside teaching, and this is one of the foundations of medical education that cannot be superseded by online or blended. It is so important that we listen to and hear the concerns of our patients so that we can provide the best care possible. I would encourage you all to apply for our residency programme and very much welcome you to Ireland. Ireland is known as the country of 1,000 welcomes. We have a diverse population, we are warm people and very inclusive in our ability to integrate into our society. I very much look forward to seeing you in the hospitals here and giving you the best education and training that's available to any doctor. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this information session on residency training with the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland. My name is John Magner, and I'm Head of International Affairs with the College. And normally at this time of the year, I travel to the Gulf area to meet doctors who are interested in coming to Ireland for their residency training. However, because of COVID, I cannot travel at this particular time. So instead, myself and my colleagues have put together this information session for you, and hopefully we'll answer some of the questions that you may have if you're thinking about coming to Ireland to undertake your residency training. So tonight I'm going to give you a very brief introduction to Ireland, talk to you a little bit about our college, some of the key features of our training programme, and some of the services we do offer as well with those doctors who are travelling to Ireland to make that transition a little easier for you. As my colleague Danielle has said, there is no need to take any notes during this presentation, as it will be available for you tomorrow morning on our website. Furthermore, if you have any additional questions for us, please feel free to email us, and myself or one of my colleagues will get back to you as a matter of priority. A little bit about Ireland itself. Known as the Emerald Isle, Ireland is an island in Western Europe, and we have a very strong and proud history and culture. In terms of connectivity to the Gulf area, pre-COVID, there were daily flights from Dublin to Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And while COVID has interrupted this flight number, there are still scheduled flights available on a weekly basis. As a country, we're a small country. You can drive, for example, from coast to coast, that's from Dublin to Galway, in just over 2 hours. And we also have an excellent national rail and bus service connecting Dublin and all of our other major towns and cities. Our population is around 5 million, of which 1.4 million is in Dublin, our capital city. Internationally, we are known as a safe, stable and friendly society. And finally, our climate is very different to that what you experience in the Gulf area. We have a mild Atlantic Ocean climate with an average temperature of about 10 degrees. And in summer months, our temperatures may reach late 20s, early 30s, and in winter may get to a little bit below zero. But predominantly, we have a very mild climate with a lot of rain, and this accounts for the very green pastures that you will see when you come to Ireland, and for which we are internationally renowned. As a country, we have a very proud scientific and medical heritage. And on this slide here, you'll see photographs of Dominic Corrigan and Robert Graves, both former presidents of our college and leading physicians in their day. Indeed, it is from the work of the likes of Corrigan, Graves and Stokes that the college has developed to being one of the leading international medical graduate training colleges in the world at this time. In terms of our global importance, Ireland's medtech sector has become one of the leading clusters for medical device companies in the world. For example, the top 10 world pharma companies have bases in Ireland. We have over 75 pharma companies operating in the country, of which 40 are FDA approved. Pre-COVID, 50% of all of ventilators used in acute hospitals worldwide were either made in Ireland or had a significant component made in Ireland. And over 30 million people with diabetes use Irish-made injectable devices. And a third of the world's contact lenses are made in Ireland. And despite being one of the smallest countries in Europe, we are one of the largest exporters of medtech products in Europe. And the reason why I'm emphasizing these facts to you is to demonstrate that because of our importance and the number of companies in Ireland, we have a very strong basis for research and partnership with industry in Ireland, all of which feeds into the quality of training and research opportunities that we do provide in our hospital sites as part of our residency training program. Before I go on to talk about the college itself in more detail, I want just to give you a very brief overview of the structure of postgraduate medical training in Ireland. When I travelled to the Gulf a number of years ago, one of the features that struck me around the organisation of training in your countries was that there was one single body responsible nationally for all postgraduate medical training. So in Saudi Arabia, it was the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties. In Kuwait, it was KIMS. In Oman, it was the OMSB. And that made the engagement with postgraduate medical training bodies somewhat easier than what it is in Ireland. In Ireland, if you want to study medicine, paediatrics, obs and gynae, pathology, public health, or OCMed, you will join the RCPI, or the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland, as we are the parent teaching body for these specialties. However, if you're interested in surgery, anesthesiology, general practice, ophthalmology, or psychiatry, you won't join the RCPI, but you will join these individual training bodies. Now, while we are separate bodies, because we're a small country, we do work very closely together. So if there is somebody out there this evening who is interested in, for example, general practice or surgery, if you forward your name and details to me, I will make sure that it's passed on to my colleagues in our sister colleges. So now a little bit about the RCPI itself. First of all, I'd like to introduce our president, Professor Mary Horgan, who is consultant in infectious diseases in Cork University Hospital in the south of our country. First of all, the RCPI is one of the oldest postgraduate medical training bodies in the world. We were established in 1764, and since then our mission has been to train, educate, and develop doctors for current and future world health needs. Our vision continues to be to lead excellence and quality in medical practice, and we do this through world-class training, education, and healthcare improvements in Ireland and internationally. Even though we are based in Ireland, we have fellows all over the world. And today we have in excess of 3,500 fellows across the college, faculties and institutes. As well as that, we have over 8,500 members at this stage, again across the college, faculties and institute, and a large number of these are based overseas, including in the Gulf countries. From a training point of view, we have over 1,500 doctors in training in Ireland at this time. And these doctors are registered on our basic specialist training programme, which is comparable to your residency training programmes, on our higher specialist training programmes, again, which is comparable to your fellowship programmes, and again, on our international clinical training programmes. Within our international programmes, we offer training at both residency and clinical fellowship level. And this evening, our main focus is going to be on the residency training programmes that we offer. So why train with the RCPI? I think, first of all, it's important to recognise that the college is one of the tier 1 training bodies in the world, and we are recognised to provide training in 28 medical subspecialties. If you do decide to do your residency training in Ireland, you will be required to pass all stages of the RCPI examination as part of your training. And as such, you will be awarded college membership and the use of the post-nominal RCPI on completion of your training. And again, very important from a college point of view, the residency training programme that you are now interested in is actually fully accredited by the Saudi Commission for Health Specialties. And this is important from the college point of view to ensure that when you return to the Gulf area after completing your training, that your training will be fully registered and recognised, and you will be accredited to practice on the basis of your training in your home country. So what about the particular features of our residency training programme? First of all, I think it's important to point out that your training will be in hospitals that are fully accredited by the college for training across Ireland. Your training is hands-on and not observership, and you will be supervised by consultant physicians who are registered with the college as trainers on our training programmes. You will train side by side with Irish and other international trainees, and you will fully participate in clinical practice, including on call, as a core part of your training programme. You will have the opportunity to participate in research, audit, publications and teaching. And as well as the clinical training, you will also be provided with a range of courses in research, leadership, teamwork and communications to complement this clinical training. You will be required to keep an e-portfolio during your training period, and you will be assessed on an ongoing basis in your training site by your supervising consultants, and you will have an annual assessment at college level at the end of each academic year. And then finally, at the end of your training, if you pass all stages of the membership exam as part of your training, and if you meet all of the clinical training requirements on your hospital site, your training will be certified by the RCPI, and you will be awarded a full certification which you can present on home to your accrediting body. So finally, in terms of supports that we offer doctors who are successful in getting a place in our programme. When we introduced the residency and fellowship training programmes a number of years ago, we recognised the significant challenges that doctors would have in transferring from the Gulf to Ireland to take up their training position, particularly in relation to registration with our medical council, getting your visa, making your travel arrangements, finding suitable accommodation, finding schools for family members if you require that, and also with the basics of setting up your bank, your mobile phone, etc. And as such, to make that journey easier for you, we engage with a company called Castell Education, and they provide a comprehensive service to doctors who are successful on our training programme. And this is a service that we provide free to you if you are taking up a position in Ireland. So finally, that was a very brief introduction to Ireland and our training programmes. As I said earlier on, if you do have any particular inquiries or if you want further information, you can then raise these as part of our chat on this webinar, or if you feel that you want to think about the issues that we've raised, please feel free to email us and we will get back to you as quickly as possible. Thank you very much.
I'm Professor Michael O'Neill, Consultant Paediatrician at Mayo University Hospital, and currently I am the Clinical Lead for the International Residency Training Programme in Paediatrics, which has been developed by the Royal College of Physicians of Ireland and supported by the Faculty of Paediatrics. The clinical component of this programme consists of 3 years of clinical experience. The first 9 months are spent in a hospital outside Dublin. During this period of time, the trainee will have their initial exposure to general paediatrics and will be able to adapt and immerse themselves in the Irish healthcare system, which will be a new experience. The following 21 months will be spent in Dublin. The first 18 months are divided into 6 3-month rotations, through which the trainee will rotate through various paediatric subspecialties, which will include, but are not limited to, neonatology, neurology, endocrinology, metabolic disease, cardiology, nephrology, respiratory medicine. Candidates with a specific interest can be accommodated for a rotation which may not be on this list. These rotations are essential if the goals and objectives of the curriculum of the programme are met. The last 9 months, if the trainee has successfully completed their membership, will be spent in a supervisory capacity. The first 3 months will be based in a Dublin hospital as a registrar, which will be equivalent to year 1 of the higher specialist training, and the last 6 months will be spent as a registrar at their base hospital where they had their initial immersion. The focus on this component of the programme is to enhance their decision-making skills, to consolidate their treatment plans, and to develop skills in supervisory capacity of junior trainees. This programme also has some unique features. There is a dedicated tutor, and this will be addressed in a subsequent part of this video. Trainees will also attend the Paediatric Basic Specialist Training Days in Dublin, of which there are 8 per year. These programmes consist of case-based discussion in the morning and seminars usually based on subspecialty areas of expertise in the afternoons. Each trainee will have a trainer who will be and a logbook which will be required to be completed as part of the training process. There will be informal evaluations on a 3-monthly basis, but a formal evaluation on a yearly basis. The standard to which the trainee will be assessed is the average Irish basic specialist trainee. This programme also has a unique educational component where we have developed specific workshops to aid the decision-making of trainees, which will be built into the programme. This is an exciting programme where trainees will have the opportunity to work in a newer healthcare system in a country which has recognised to train paediatricians to a very high level. I would be pleased if you would engage with this programme.
Hi, I'm Sarah Richardson and I'm the Clinical Paediatric Tutor for the International Residency Training Programme. I am a general paediatrician and have done both my basic specialist training and higher specialist training through the RCPI. I also have the Irish Paediatric Membership Exams. I've worked in both the UK and Australia also for my training in paediatrics. My role in the programme is to help you prepare for the membership exams and also to prepare for the clinical experience you'll have in the Irish hospital setting. The membership exams for the RCPI are in 3 parts. The part 1 is a book knowledge based MCQ exam. The part 2 is more application of knowledge from a clinical point of view, and then you have a clinical OSCE style exam to complete the memberships. My work starts with you while you're still in Saudi. We prepare by building on our basic paediatric knowledge, working on our exam techniques and doing mock MCQs and mock questions to help both evaluate your knowledge and give you and me an idea of where you're at in your preparation. We have been doing this as a virtual online platform, and I use Google Classroom as a place to put presentations that I've done, clinical guidelines that I feel are relevant, and relevant papers that are of interest in clinical practice. When you're here in Ireland, we continue with these tutorials on a weekly basis. I currently carry these out online due to COVID, and so they are accessible to everyone. I work on building your knowledge on subspecialties when you're starting your subspecialty placements, and I also continue to work with clinical scenarios and clinical examples to help build your clinical knowledge and application of knowledge. The other element of the tutor role in the programme is to help prepare you for the differences between the Irish system and the Saudi system in relation to your work and the expectations of you on the programme. I do this by helping to show you the differences that we have and the reasons for that, and help prepare you for that as best we can. I am available through WhatsApp forums and email to work with you on clinical scenarios that might arise in your day-to-day work where you have questions, and also to continue the preparation for the exams. This is a unique service available through the International Residency Training Programme that the Irish trainees do not have access to, and it certainly is advantageous for you in preparing for the exams. I think it's a really enjoyable experience, and we all get to know each other very well, and it provides a support network for you with the fellow members of the programme.
Good evening again, and thank you for joining us on this evening's meeting. And again, welcome back to our panelists, Professor O'Neill, Dr. Sarah Richardson, Danielle, and Louise, who's supporting tonight's event. I'd also like to thank you for engaging with us and for submitting some questions to us. So I'm now going to put these to the panel, and hopefully they will provide further advice and guidance to you as you consider joining our residency training program. So I think the first question goes to you, Professor O'Neill, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So somebody here is wondering, what are the key criteria you look at when you're examining and considering applications for shortlisting and inviting to interview?
Okay, that's quite a good question. So what I would say is that when you're making your application for this program, we need to get a sense of who is the person who is actually applying. What is their interest level in pediatrics, and is there evidence to support that it is actually present? This might reflect a clinical clerkship that you've done, a little research project, an audit, or some outside work outside medicine where you've engaged with children and supporting them. We're also looking for a sense of your desire to expand your skill set and travel to a different culture and be exposed to different types of pediatrics. And this is reflected in the personal statement. And I think also we look for interests outside pediatrics, because we're interested in having trainees who are just not unidimensional, but are multidimensional with interests outside medicine, where when they are here, they can involve themselves in those interests and actually become part of the general community and the pediatric community as well. So there would be the issues that I would highlight.
Okay. And maybe a second, a follow-up question to that, if you don't mind. If I am called to interview, do you have any advice in terms of how I might best prepare for an interview? Because interviewing in Ireland or for an Irish residency program will be new to me, something I won't have experienced before.
Okay, so certainly we've given some background knowledge about the program and how it is structured. So certainly having a knowledge of this program, and on the video Sarah's mentioned some of the elements, and again on the brochure we have our core elements of it. So that would be absolutely essential. I also think what we have noticed previously is trainees or people who are interviewing is they need to try and give examples which indicate their interest and why they would be suitable. And then the third element is that we always have a question on clinical problem solving, which is quite generic, and we're really looking for how they would approach it at their level. So we're looking to see if they have a safe approach, if they have an understanding of very simple physiological principles that would be standard in the care of anybody who has done an internship. So they would be the elements. We're also interested, I would say, in their ability to engage with newer systems as well, and understand that they will be in an area of change, and there may be some difficulties for it, but they will use the support network and reach out if they are in difficulty, which is an important skill.
Okay, thank you so much. But the interviews are always very welcoming. Yeah?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. You know.
That's very good. Okay, maybe Danielle, maybe one for you if you don't mind. Somebody here has just highlighted, because of COVID, I'm having difficulty in arranging an English language test. And will this disadvantage me if I'm called to interview?
No, it's definitely an advantage to have the test, but we do understand that this year has been very abnormal, and we've had issues from lots of trainees who haven't been able to secure a test, either the OET or the IELTS. So we do understand this, and we can be flexible with that exam. Also, you do have time. So the deadline to have the exam will be pushed back to around March time. So if you are offered a position, you will have time to meet that requirement after the interview.
Okay, and maybe a follow-up question again, Danielle, if you don't mind. In our literature, we refer to the fact that you require an additional examination to qualify for entry to this program. So a trainee question here is, I've completed my undergraduate degree, I have my internship. Why do I need another exam, and where can I access that exam?
Yeah, so when you come to Ireland, you'll be registered with the Irish Medical Council. And in order to get on the register, you do have to have an additional exam post your education. So these, I can give you a quick list of these. They're also available on our website to follow up on. But these are the PLAB Part 1, the USMLE Part 1 and 2, the MCCQE Part 1, the Australian Medical Council MCQs, and also the Saudi Board Part 1 in Paediatrics, or the Arab Board Part 1 in Paediatrics. So in addition to your education and your internship, you will be required to have one of these exams. Again, we do understand that these may not be accessible right now. I know that lots of these companies running these exams are making these more available and more accessible from home, doing online tests. So I'd advise you to have a look at the individual exams and find out when you can take these exams. But again, the same as the IELTS and OET, there will be some flexibility around this, and you can interview if you don't yet have your results or your exams done. You can still interview with us, and you'll have time to complete these post-interview.
Okay, and maybe Michael, another one for yourself, if you don't mind. I have somebody here asking, in terms of my rotations, will I be in the same city or town, or because you mentioned, okay, having to undertake different rotations in different hospitals, will those be for short periods or longer periods?
Okay, so the initial 9 months will be based outside Dublin, and the aim in that 9 months is to have an exposure to general pediatrics and some neonatology. But the initial, I would say, up to 4 to 6 weeks are part of the immersion process that you will undertake in adapting to the Irish healthcare system. It'll obviously be newer ways of doing things, newer computer systems, different cultures. And I guess the other part is that we don't really, in pediatrics, we tend not to have a very hierarchical system. So it is flatter than people may expect. So in that first 6 to 9 months outside Dublin, it will be general pediatrics with some neonates. And then it is moving to Dublin. And in Dublin at the moment, there are 3 children's hospitals, and you will rotate through those for a 3-month period. So the idea of the 3-month rotation is that it is 1 week and 11 weeks. So say you move to Dublin, you would have an immersion, say, in metabolic disease for a week, and then you would leave that and you would maybe do your rotation in neonatology for 11 weeks. And then at the end of that point in time, you would come back having already had an immersion in metabolic disease and do that for 11 weeks. So you would have an idea how the service runs. You would know what the goals and objectives are to be achieved, so you would be able to hit the ground running. And we're interested in moving people through these 3-month rotations so they're exposed to the breadth of pediatrics. So a lot of people think pediatrics is actually very limited, but if you're in, say, cardiology or neurology, you'll be seeing the common conditions, the rare conditions, the acute presentations, the elective presentations. So this is the idea of that. And then during that period of time, obviously, you will have to pass the exam. So there will be that 21-month period in Dublin. But in the last 9 months of the program, we're interested in people who are successful and who are going to move up to the junior registrar level is to have a supervisory capacity. And this is basically where you're using the knowledge and now you are sort of person involved in the actual decision-making process. And then when in the last 6 months, you move back to your base hospital where you were as an SHO as part of the International Residency Training Program, and you will come back as a registrar. And at that stage, you will be in the middle tier of decision-making, and that is where you will be applying the skills that you have spent up to 30 months accruing. And that's the exciting part of it, because then you're able to say, can I apply the skills that I've learned, and can I problem solve the clinical scenarios that are posed to me on an ongoing basis, which are quite varied.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Dr. Sarah, if I may, a question for yourself. Somebody here is wondering, the support that you provide to doctors in Saudi Arabia, is that provided on a one-to-one basis, or are they as group tutorials or as group lectures?
Thanks, John. So it's very adaptable, actually. At the moment, what I would tend to do is do a weekly tutorial with the group. So that would be the group that's studying for the same exam at the same time. And we would work through scenarios, but we also work on mock MCQs that people do in their own time. And then I work with individuals on questions that they struggled with or difficulties that they might have. So it's very much depends on the individual and how things are going. But we work very closely as a group. I'm available very regularly, and you get to know me very quickly and very regularly as we do online tutorials, workshops. I have a Google Classroom with lots of information and resources on there. And we also have a WhatsApp group that we use as a group where somebody might put up a case that they've seen in practice that they have questions about. And as a group, we can talk about that and talk about what we would do or not do in managing that case. And I think the trainees find that really useful to be able to kind of discuss a case like that and see what maybe I would do compared to what they wanted to do and stuff like that.
Okay, and maybe a supplementary question, if you don't mind. Somebody here concerned, okay, that the requirement to take 3 parts of a new exam to do RCPI is quite onerous, and are concerned if they didn't pass part 1, for example, in the first year, does that mean that they can progress to year 2, or what are the implications for them?
Yeah, so I suppose one of the main goals of the first year of the program is to pass the part 1 of the memberships. It is a knowledge-based part of the exam. It's an MCQ. It's an online exam, which can be done. It's now got remote invigilating and stuff, so it can be done from your own home. So as soon as you're accepted on the program, I start working with the group doing tutorials and preparing for that exam. There's 2 attempts per year. There's 2 attempts held each year by the college. So you have 2 attempts and also an opportunity before arriving in Ireland to sit the exam. It doesn't stop you progressing to the second year of the program if you don't obtain it, but it may have a knock-on effect for you in terms of passing both the second part and the clinical as you move through the program. So ideally, we try to really focus on it in the first year, really build our knowledge base and take those opportunities to sit the exam. And so far, we've been very successful with our trainees about passing that part 1 and being able to move on to the next part of the memberships.
And sorry, I'm actually going to put a third question to you now in a row, believe it or not. Again, somebody concerned here that coming to Ireland is going to be a new experience for them, hopefully a very good experience, but coming into a new hospital system and a new culture, and that's going to be challenging, especially as they start a new demanding training program as well. And looking as to what kind of supports are provided locally in the hospital systems to help them settle in, to help them to get to know the new system, or is there a little bit of grace given to them in terms of responsibilities being deferred for a little while when they arrive in Ireland? Yeah,
so you have an awful lot of stuff to access and resources. Locally in the hospital that you start in, you have an individual trainer who's a very experienced consultant who is very experienced with teaching and training, and they work very closely with you. You also, each hospital is required to provide induction, and then the department themselves will also provide induction about just getting used to the computer systems and how we do things. And in paediatrics, as Michael has already mentioned, we're a very friendly, close group, and the hierarchy is maybe a little bit different to other specialties. And so you have access to lots of other people with experience who will help guide you with the system. And then I also play quite a big role in trying to help you with that. We do induction again before you arrive in Ireland, explaining the Irish health system, how it works, how pediatrics work around Ireland. And then when you come here again, I do Zoom calls with you to help you kind of troubleshoot any of those kind of things that might come up at work that are maybe different to how things are in Saudi. Once, hopefully when COVID is no longer an issue, I'll be back in the hospitals to meet people on the ground as well and introduce them to the Irish system.
Okay, thank you, very good. Again, Michael, maybe a question for yourself. Is somebody here you mentioned on call, and I also mentioned it in my presentation. Can you give some idea as to the volume of on call and the structure of on call that will be required under the program?
Okay, so I think what I would say to you is that people may be under the idea that, working 9 to 5 is the way to do medicine. But in pediatrics and in the basic specialist training program for the Irish trainees and for the higher specialist training program, call is regarded as absolutely integral to learning, because it is there that you see children who are unselected. So you have to problem solve what's amiss with them, and you have to weigh and consider the significance of their clinical symptoms, whether you can send them home or admit them. So that for the trainees in our particular hospital, they would do call 1 in 6 to 1 in 7. And for them, call is a 16-hour shift, which would start at 6 in the evening and would end at 10 in the morning after the post-call round. So the importance of that 16-hour shift is that the post-call handover, which starts, say, from 9 till 10 or from 8 till 10 in some units, that is where a lot of the teaching is actually done. So once that is done, then they would go back to their day duties, whether they're attached to acute care, the pediatric decision unit, or wherever else it is. Say, for example, in Sarah's hospital, call would be 12-hour shifts, and they might do sort of a 4 12-hour shifts, say 8 till 8 or 9 until 9 or 10 until 10 for 4 nights, and they might do that once a month, and that would be effectively it for them. Other than that, they would be doing their 9 to 6 day work, and that might be, say, in a subspecialty of neurology. But during their call, they would be exposed to children in the emergency department and children who are deteriorating in the hospital on various subspecialty wards. So call for us is extremely important in the learning process.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And again, a question maybe either of you might take, if you don't mind. Somebody here just wondering, in your experience, what have been the biggest challenges that trainees have faced coming from the Gulf to train in Ireland? And what have they found to be the biggest differences between Irish and hospitals in the Gulf area?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess I might just add my 2 cents for this. I think the first thing is that Irish hospitals are tightly staffed, and there's expectations on everybody to perform to a set level. So say for the SHO, they have their roles and responsibilities clearly defined, and there's an expectation that they will function at that level. I think the challenge is also the environment in which they're entering. It's culturally quite different, that the expectations are clear-cut, and you have to defer up to the registrar if you're concerned, and then to the consultant. But as Sarah has previously mentioned, on my particular service at the moment, my SHO would call me directly if my registrar isn't there, and we would round together specifically. So it is this cultural difference, and then how things are actually done. It's sort of learning the system, I would think, are the biggest issues. I don't know if you would like to add to that, Sarah, or subtract.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think people adapt very well to the system. I think what people notice is that maybe we have a different volume of doctors working on a particular case at each time. So you would have a lot of responsibility and decision making, and recognizing when you need to speak to a more senior person. But there's lots of hands-on experience, which I think is vital when you're trying to develop your clinical knowledge. And you get lots of experience with that, and lots of support in paediatrics in Ireland with that.
Okay. And maybe, Sarah, another question for yourself, if you don't mind. This question here is in relation to the on-site assessment. Can you just give a little bit more as to what assessments are required on the clinical site as opposed to the exams? And if somebody is not meeting the required standard on the site, are there supports available to them to help them to get to the standard that's required to pass a particular clinical rotation?
Yeah, so as Michael mentioned earlier, the college do end of year assessments, and we have what we call an e-portfolio. So this is a really useful tool for any trainee to use to record all the different cases that they're seeing, the clinical skills that they're learning, cases that maybe have been a challenge, maybe there's been conflict with a parent or a challenge over decision making of how to manage a case, something like that, and all those things you record in your portfolio. And that's something that I very much support and help you with, to record all this to reflect the experience you're gaining. And then that is used then at the end of the year to assess how your training has gone, if there's any areas that maybe you're a bit weaker on or that you need help with. And as part of that portfolio, your local supervisor would do mini case-based discussions and clinical exams and would observe you doing some clinical skills, and then you would sit together and they would appraise you, and that would all be put into your e-portfolio. And then if there is concerns in terms of if you're struggling and finding things difficult, or if your supervisor has concerns, they would generally approach Prof. O'Neill or myself, and we can try and support and help you to kind of manage that. Okay,
thank you very much. That's very clear. In terms, Danielle, I have a very specific question here from somebody. I have an IELTS score of 7, but one domain is less than 6. Is this going to be acceptable in terms of meeting the English language requirements?
Unfortunately not. The Medical Council and the HSC have outlined the requirements for this specific requirement, and it does have to be an overall of 7 with no area less than 6.5. So you'll have to maybe attempt that one again.
Okay, and another one maybe for yourself, Danielle, is somebody here asking, is the USMLE enough to be exempted from part 1 of the Irish exam? Now, I don't know whether that's the membership or the Medical Council requirement. And maybe you can also clarify what are the requirements that must be completed by somebody before coming to Ireland, or can they take, for example, the PLAB after coming to Ireland, or must that be all completed before they transfer to Ireland?
Yeah, so if I'm correct on this, the SMLE is the exam that you take after you complete your internship year in Saudi. And unfortunately, that is not one of the exempting qualifications. So you will still have to get one of the additional exams. It's only the only Saudi exam that would be an exempting qualification is the Part 1 Saudi board exam. And the additional exam does have to be completed before you arrive in Ireland, along with the English language exam. You can't start in post or arrive before those exams are completed and you've met the requirement. As far as requirements go for interview, you will have to have completed your primary medical degree through English, and also have completed your structured internship year. Another big requirement is to have provisional sponsorship approval from your training body, your ministry, or the hospital that you work with. We also require 2 letters of recommendation. And another big one is that you can't also be on a position in a residency program back home. So if you're already in a residency program, unfortunately, you won't be able to get onto this residency program. I think does that answer the question, John?
Yes, I think so. Thank you for that. And Michael, maybe a question here, maybe for yourself. Somebody here has noticed that the faculty offers a diploma in paediatrics, and just wondering, where does that come into play in terms of the residency training program, either for yourself or Sarah? So maybe
the diploma in paediatrics is something that used to be quite popular amongst the paediatric trainees, but it basically is a diploma more suitable for general practitioners. Certainly, people who are interested in doing it can be supported in doing it, but our focus would be on preparing them for the membership exam per se, because the learning objectives will be somewhat different. So just to sort of clarify that, say, as Sarah's already mentioned, the Part 1 is book knowledge, but the part 2 is the application of knowledge, which is very, very different. So that examination is the application, and then the skill sets is an OSCE component where you're able to put together, do the assessment, and integrate what the physical findings mean. So these are 3 different skill sets, so that while the diploma is of interest, it's probably not beneficial for somebody to actually make it as their primary focus.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. There's one here which I think I might take myself. It's about sponsorship. And again, it's just inquiring as to the type of sponsorship that we will accept. And again, I have to just advise that unfortunately we cannot accept private sponsorship. So if somebody wishes to apply for the program, as Danielle says, they must have a sponsor from a public institution. That's either the ministry, university, or one of the postgraduate training bodies in the Gulf area. And again, a question on following that is, what are your requirements, on returning home? Specific question here is, will I have to spend the 3 years working with the same institution that I am sponsored from in Saudi Arabia? I think that's something you would have to discuss with your sponsor when you are applying for that sponsorship. That would be a matter between yourself, indeed, and your sponsor. So there's one final question and I might put this to Michael if you don't mind, and that's, in the very difficult times that we have now with COVID, is that having a significant impact in terms of the residency training program continuing to be offered in the first place? And has it any significant impact in terms of the training that's offered in the Irish hospitals?
Well, COVID has actually forced us to rethink our training. And I would say to you is that in the pediatric component, the number of acute admissions to hospitals are falling, and that's right throughout the country. But what I would say is that the educational program has adapted to that, so that the online education is getting more formalized and more structured. In our own unit and several units around the country, the handover process of assessing children who have been seen and sent home, that is now taking on stronger elements as the educational. But for children with, sort of say, organic disease, for example, leukemia, heart disease, metabolic disease, nephrotic syndrome, all of those children are still attending and they're still being seen in the subspecialty clinics. So what I would say to you is that the acute unselected children that we would see, those numbers are reducing, but the hardcore pediatric organic disease is as it was previously. One thing that is happening, which is becoming more concerning, is that there's a psychological morbidity occurring as a consequence of COVID. And I would suggest is that eating disorders, anxiety states, chronic headaches, non-specific abdominal pains, all things like that, they're becoming much more common, and they're now forming a significant part of our workload during this acute phase. And hopefully with the onset of the vaccine and we can get back to normal, it will be a different normal where the ongoing educational stuff that we've managed to develop so well, we're probably going to maintain because it's proving very effective. And I would say to you is that our BST trainees still have their educational days, 8 per year, of which the international residency trainees attend online, and it's proving very successful. So,
okay, so thank you so much.
Opportunities in this crisis as it relates to pediatric education, and we are availing of them.
Yeah. That's great. And one further question came in while you were answering that question, and that is there an age limit in terms of for applicants to this program?
No, there is no age limit. Okay.
We are a very open and welcoming society in Ireland.
Yes, we are.
Okay. So again, look at just like to thank everybody for their participation on this evening's meeting, to thank the panelists, and particularly thank the people who joined us tonight and who were so engaged in presenting so many questions to us. And just again to confirm that a copy of this presentation is available on our website from tomorrow. And if you have any further queries for us, you can just direct them to Danielle, myself, or Louise, and we will engage with Michael and Sarah, and we'll get back to you on any particular issues that you wish. And again, hopefully you found this evening helpful, and we look forward to receiving your applications. We look forward to meeting you at interview, And again, do not be in any way scared of presenting yourself to interview. You have met Professor O'Neill tonight and Dr. Sarah Richardson, and you can see how pleasant they are in terms of wanting to support you in this program. So I can assure you it'll always be a very enjoyable experience. So again, just say thank you and good evening, and we look forward to keeping in touch with you.